Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Miss Crochet and Coffee here, and today you finally get introduced to my new knitting machine. Now, there are a couple of different types of knitting machines. There's loops and thread, there's Addy machines. This one is called, if I can get it off the table here, a Sentro machine. This Sentro machine is a 40 needle Sentro machine, which means it has 40 of these little needles that go all the way around. Today I am going to show you how to make just a basic hat, because you got to walk before you run, okay? So I'm going to show how to make a basic hat on the Sentro machine. Now, with the Sentro machine, this one here does not come with a timer, so you kind of have to eyeball it when it comes to size. Now, this machine will make size for children to preteen. So if you want to make a bigger hat, you would have to go with the Sentro 48 needle. That one does have a counter on it, but it can be a little iffy, I'm just saying. So with this machine, again, it has suction cups on the feet of it so that you can suction it down, which is why you're getting a different view today, because I can't do this on my regular table. Now, if you're working on a surface that it will not stick to, like if you have suction cups and they won't stick to a certain surface, that's perfectly fine. If you have some packing tape, lay some packing tape down where the feet go, boom, you're in business. Now, this one does tubes and panels. It has a tension guard here. It has tight, medium, and loose tension that you can use. It has this guide here, which goes also in the inside of it to help the needles catch the yarn. And don't worry, I'll bring you down into the business when we get started. So we're actually going to get started now. So this is the hand crank that cranks all the needles around. And yes, this is a manual one. I have seen them have, someone had a drill bit that they had made. And I guess the Addy machine has a bit that you could possibly buy to use a drill to do it. But I like doing it by hand because you can see what you're doing, and if you make a mistake, you can catch yourself. So, for these machines, they're best to use, as in my experience, because everybody's experience is different. In my experience, these machines are best used with size 3 DK lightweight yarn or a size 4 worsted weight yarn. The worsted weight can vary depending on the thickness of it, because they're not all created equal, folks. So today, for this tutorial, for the hat that I'm going to make, I am going to use this mandala sparkle. And as you can see, it's this baby pink and some peaches and grays and light lavenders. So we're going to use this to make my hat. So I always try to find the center pull, which that was not it, because apparently it was just the side pull. All right, so I found the center pull. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt to find a center pull on the cakes of yarn. And so for those wondering what a cake of yarn is, this is considered a cake of yarn. So this is a cake. That's the sink, don't worry about that. So what we're gonna do is, first you have to thread your machine. Now you can't just throw this in here and be like, I'm just gonna spin it and it's magically gonna make a hat. No, no, no. Walk before you run. So first things first, each needle, and I don't know if I can bring you down close enough to see that. If you can see right here, can you see? One, there's like some dust there, which that will happen sometimes on these machines, I've noticed. But in there, there's number 12. So you see the number 12 here is really light. It does tell you what number the needles are. So, sorry, let me just adjust you here. You don't want to look in the sink. This is going to take me some getting used to, folks. I'm not used to recording here. All right. So the first thing you're going to want to do is thread your machine. So you use your hand crank, and all these machines have a special indicator to let you know the beginning or the end. So you see this black needle here? That is the end. That is needle number 40, okay? And you might also see some dogs over that way. Don't worry about it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread our machine. And by thread our machine, I mean bring you out a little bit here. By threading the machine, you're going to take the tail end of your yarn and throw it inside. You're just going to throw it in there. You want a decent size length of yarn to put inside, and we're going to thread it. So we're going to make sure it catches on that black hook. You're then going to use your hand crank, and you're going to go behind the next one in front of the next. You're going to loop it back and forth around all 40 needles, okay? This is how you thread your machine. Now, if you're making something like a head wrap, which I will have a tutorial for the head wraps that I've been putting up on Instagram and in my Facebook group. If you're making something like a head wrap, you'll need waste yarn, but for a hat, you won't need waste yarn. So you just do it just like that, where it catches every other hook, and then I put it in the guide. So the guide is right here. You want to make sure it snaps into that guide, and then I'm just going to put it in the tension bar. And because this is a size 3 yarn, I'm going to put it in the tightest, sorry, let's focus here. I'm going to put it in the tightest tension down here. Okay, so now that we got that all figured out, is looped around every other needle. This is the part where you make the actual hat. You then make sure your machine is suctioned to the table or whatever you're using. Now, if you have like an AliExpress or another machine, it might not come with the suction cups, but this one does. So what we're gonna do now is make sure it's nice and tight on the countertop here, because I'm on my counter. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna put my cake of yarn on the side here. And a lot of people like to use their hand to guide their tension, but this one has a tension bar, so you don't necessarily have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cranking real slow. I always go slow around that first round just to make sure it's catching, make sure the yarn is compatible with the machine, because you don't want it to slip a stitch. All right, now that it's gone around once, and to make it easier on the machine so you're not stressing the machine out. And by stressing the machine, I mean like pulling tight on those needles, because they can break. So you don't want them to break, so you want to try to kind of give yourself a pool of yarn. The pool of yarn makes it easier for it to not only guide through, it also shows you if there's any knots in your yarn, because any kind of cake or skein of yarn can have little knots in it, and that won't go through the tension guide. It'll go through this guide, but it won't go through this one, so you have to be careful. So we're going to go ahead and make a big pool of yarn over here, and then we're going to crank. And what I'm doing is, as I'm spinning it, like I said, a lot of people like to hold it with their hand. You don't necessarily have to. I'm holding my hand here in case there's any resistance from the cake of yarn. So I'm going to get you down here so you can see exactly what these needles are doing. And again, my hand being held here makes sure there's no resistance from the yarn and that it can flow through smoothly into the machine, because as you can see how it's all nice and uniform? That's what one of the perks is of having this tension bar, is making sure that each row is tensioned exactly like the previous one. Sometimes also what I will do is, as you saw, we had the weight on there. And once you get to about this point, you don't really need the weight on there anymore. So then what I'll use this little clip for is I put it on my tensioner here so that my yarn doesn't slip out. Because if it slips out, you could possibly slip a stitch in the machine. So you want to be careful with that not slipping out. So sometimes I will put that little clip right on there. So you can see it right there. And it's not on the actual, because there's little slip marks, as you can see. It's not touching the actual yarn. It's just on there to hold that hole so that nothing can come out of it. So that no matter what's going on with the yarn, it's not going to release from that tension. So we're going to keep going. One of my legs came loose. I don't want it shaking. Shaking can also cause it to, your machine shaking can cause your stitches to pop up, and again will cause what is called a slip stitch. And if something like that happens, you have to then manually go in and fix it, which I will show you how to do that if we skip a stitch. If not, I'll make sure to do a video on it. All right, here we go. So we got a knot in our yarn. There's a little knot down here in the yarn. And because I wasn't holding it with my hand, I didn't catch it. So what it does is it pops that tension bar up to let you know, hey, there's something right there. So what I do with the knots is I put them right on top of the hole, like it's right, the knot's right here. And then I just release it out of the bottom of the tensioner just so it can go through the guide, because it will go through the guide. So we're going to put our clamp back on. There it is. Boom, we're back in business. Now you're probably wondering, how is something this big going to turn into a hat? Now, do keep in mind that it's going to look really big because it's on a 40 needle stretched machine. So it's stretching those fibers to come together like this. It's stretching them out like that, but as soon as it comes off the machine, it will release that tension. And as you can see how it's smaller down here, that's about the size it'll be whenever you take it off of here. So we're going to keep going. I typically like to do, for a hat, about 120 rounds. Now, if you're doing something like a scarf or an infinity scarf, you're going to probably want to do about 200 to 250 rounds. And on these machines that don't have counters, you're going to kind of have to eyeball it because there's no counter. So unless you want to go through and count each one of the lines as a stitch or as a row, it's going to be a little hard to mark which one is around or which row is what, how many rows have I done. You can keep track if you're, say, alone and you don't have anybody interrupting you. And every time you see that black hook come around, 1, 2. Like, they do have digital counters that you can use, like manual ones. Like, I know for crocheting, they have the little ring ones that you could put on your finger, and you could click that every time you see the black needle. They do have some kind of attachment that you can put on these machines. I don't know anything about that attachment, so I'm not going to really go into that. But they do have other, like, manual counters that you can use for that. So it doesn't bother me too much that it doesn't have a counter on it because I've made enough of them. And believe me, when you get the machines, you play around with them. That's how you learn how to use them. Play around with them, see what you can make. Because that's how you learn what goes well with the machine, what doesn't work well with the machine. You just have to play around with it a little bit. If your arm starts getting fatigued while you're doing this, feel free to take a break. You don't have to do an entire hat and, you know, crank it till your arm is numb and you can't feel anything. Feel free, take a break, check out your yarn, make sure there's no snags, make sure there's nothing going on with it. You can pull it up like this to check it, to see the color variations. It is going to roll up on you because, again, it's on a circular machine. Of course it's going to roll. But we'll take care of that later whenever we go into the actual hat part. So then what I like to do when it starts touching my countertop or my table, I fold it up like this so that it's not rubbing and getting dirty or anything like that. Also, make sure you wipe off your countertop. I probably should have said that first. Make sure you wipe off whatever surface you're working on so that you're not getting your yarn dirty. So, again, take as many breaks as you need to. Just do keep in mind that the crank goes away from you and not towards you because you don't want to go backwards on the machine. Once you start going one direction, you don't want to go the opposite direction because it will pull those stitches off the machine and it will slip your stitches and then essentially your project will fall off the machine. So you want to make sure you go the same direction. And then again, you can always stop, check to see how big your hat is. If you want it a little bit longer, if you're done. I want this to be a little bit longer. I want it to be a slouchy beanie. So what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit longer, maybe another 10 rows. So let's go. And yes, I am keeping this in real time with nothing added to it so that when you're learning, you know exactly how long it took me to do this. Now, of course, minus the stopping and talking. My arm needs a break. Maybe your arm needs a break. Maybe you're just researching. But I have to stop to make sure that I'm not hurting myself when I'm using the machine. So we're going to keep going. All right, now, whenever you are done with your hat, you have it the length that you want, you're happy with it, you want to take it off the machine. Whoa, do not just take and start cranking it and thinking it's going to fall off that way. No, no, no. So let's do about 2 more rounds. So 1, 2. When you end your round, my rule of thumb is make sure that black hook catches the last thing of yarn, okay? Once that black needle catches that yarn, then what I'm going to do, I have my snips. Now they're in their little case. I got these from Amazon. I'll link them in the description box below. Now the machines do come with a couple of these Dorney needles, which are like fabric needles, I want to say, possibly. I could be wrong, or they're like maybe embroidery needles. And then it also comes with a 3.75 millimeter little plastic crochet hook. But for this tutorial, we only need this one. This is the longer needle to sew in the ends. So what we're going to do, I'm going to leave a decent sized tail. So let's move this up a little bit. So we're going to leave a decent sized tail. I'm going to snip it right there. Because you have to then, you're gonna then get all of these, and like you saw, you didn't even use the full cake of yarn, so you can make something else with that. Maybe we'll do a tutorial on head wrap next. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna release it from the tension bar. We're gonna thread that needle, and it's a big eye, so it's not gonna, you know, be hard. So first things first. Again, you want to make sure it's caught on that black one. And then what you're going to do, after it catches that black one, we're going to roll. We want those needles to go down like that. So let's push you up this way. Once the needles go down, I go behind that first stitch here and into the stitch. So right here where the black needle is, I'm going to do that one first. So right behind it. And I just go off to the side to catch those loops, and we're going to pull our yarn through. We're going to do it again right behind on the side over there, pull it through. And you're going to do that the whole way around. So we're going to bring it over some more. Catch that side. And this will get all of your stitches off the machine. This is how you get them off for a hat. So no matter what machine you're using, if you're making a hat, this is how, for like a basic hat, I should say, this is how you get it off. So we're going to keep spinning, and I'll spin and keep a couple of them out like this so that it goes a little bit faster, because you can essentially make this hat in 30 minutes. If I wasn't jibber jabbing and I was just going, you can make this hat in 30 minutes. We're just going to do this the whole way around. And again, it's just that back loop right behind it. And then I just go up from the side. And that one came off because it's looped onto one of my other needles over here on the side. No biggie, just rethread it, keep going. And this is why you want your tail long when you end it, so that you can get it all threaded onto the yarn. Oop, I went a little too far, you can't see me, but I'll be back over there in a second. And you want to make sure you don't skip any stitches, because then you might end up with like a little hole in your hat, and you don't want that. This is the slow process to get the hat off. Gotta rethread my needle here. Then we're down to the last two. All right. So now that we got it all off, as you can see, it's free and clear, the hat part comes. So what we're going to do, see, you just looped it all on there. Okay. You looped it all on there. Safety first. I'm going to put those snips back in there. And then all you have to do is pull. You pull on the string that you looped all the strands on. Now, sometimes it'll bunch up like this. See how it's all bunched up like that? That's because it's rolled. If you take and twist your yarn and then pull, see how it's not rolled anymore? Also, you can see the shimmer in that yarn. It's so pretty. So it's not rolled anymore. And essentially you have a long tube like this. Now, if you would like the hat to be rolled up, you can always just keep this part rolled up like that, tie that off, hide it in the roll up, boom. But you wouldn't make it this long. So I made it this long for a reason. So what we're going to do is this bottom part here, we're going to unroll it. And we're also going to pull this bottom part. I'm going to flip it in. Because again, it's going to roll up because it was made in a round. So it's going to roll up. But all you have to do is twist it and tuck it inside. Boom. Now it's nice and closed, right? See how it's nice and closed? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little knot right here so that it won't come loose. So we're going to make a little knot. And you're probably thinking, well, how do you make the hat out of that? So we're going to get rid of this yarn over here. So we have our tube, and you want to stretch it. It tightens the stitches up really nice. So we're going to stretch it out a little bit. Get those stitches nice and tight. All right. What I do is I pinch it from the middle. So about here. So if you fold it in half, this is about the middle. So where this dark this light lavender is about the middle. So you're going to pull the two sides apart like this, and you're going to tuck. So we're going to pull it apart, and I'm going to tuck this end all the way up to the top of this end. So you're tucking it inside of itself. Get you up a little higher so you can see. So you're tucking it inside of itself. So the two top parts, you see how here's one top part, and then here's the other top part. So the two top parts are going to meet up. So we're going to close that back. And then what I like to do is take my tail, and you can use the same needle for it. Sorry about the glare. Again, it's a countertop. I can't help it. All right. So we're going to thread that needle. You're going to go inside your hat. Now take it, this side, this top part here there's not a knot in it yet. So we're going to put a little knot in it here. We're going to just add a little knot to it. That'll keep it from unraveling there. So then what you're going to do is, depending on what side you want the hat showing, see how it makes this cool little star here? I'm going to bring it down a little bit. So it makes this cool little star here. So what I'm going to do, right in the center, there's like a little hole right there. Just going to stick my needle right in the center. Boom. Now, if you want that to be tighter, if you don't want there to be a hole right there, you can always take and sew your hole shut. Now, because I'm using an embellishment up there, I don't really care. So that hole can sit there because it's going to tighten itself up when I do that. And I have both strands, the one from the inside and the outside. And you can make this a reversible hat. If you don't want to add any embellishments to it, you can make it just like this. And then what you would do is you would take and put your tail in between the two hats. So how it's folded in on itself, you would just take and say, we'll do an example here. You don't want that tail to show. You want it to be reversible. You would just take it and you're putting it in between the two stitches. So it's not coming out the other side. It's in between them. And then you would just find a spot, do like this. And then you would cut the yarn and stretch it and it would hide that tail for you. But for right now, I'm going to leave that out because one, you can cut your tails at this point because you've done with the hat. You're done with the hat. This is the hat. It's double-sided. Depending on what side you would like showing. Isn't that really pretty? It's so pretty. All right. And so if you want to make it reversible, this is where you're done. You just cut those tails off, sew them into the inside layers, and you're done. But I would like to add an embellishment to this hat. So I got a fuzzy pom-pom. Now these fuzzy pom-poms you can find on Amazon, and I of course will link it down below. And on the fuzzy pom-poms, what you do is, well, you're going to find the side that you're going to put the fuzzy pom-pom on. So I think we're going to use this side. And I have my two strings here. One, they don't need to be so long, so we're going to cut them. I'm going to thread my needle with the two yarns. Because remember, this is from the inside and the outside. This was the reason why I didn't care if there was a little bit of a hole up top there, because I knew I was going to add a pom-pom to it. So then what you do, on the pom-pom, there's a little loop in there. You see it? Thread your yarn through. And then what you can do is take your needle and stick it back down into the hole. And you're sticking it, this time you're sticking the needle into the hat like this. You're going to pull the yarn up. You're going to tighten it. Put it back on the needle here. And then if you would like, you can like say sew this together. That's going to secure not only the pom-pom, but then like the inside of your hat. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And I make sure it's nice and tight so that the pom-pom doesn't come off and it's not loose and bobbling around. And then I'm just going to make a knot here. If I can find my loop. All right. We're just going to put it in there. And I'm going to leave this little loop up here. Take it off my needle. And I'm just going to make a knot right there. I'm going to tighten it as tight as I can. And this is where we hide our tails. Now, you don't necessarily have to cut the tails off, but if you want to hide them, again, because it's multi-layered, I'm just going to take it down through here, in between the layers, not going to the other side of the hat. Let's say we're going to go right here. So we're going to pull that down into the hat. We're going to stretch it. Tails are gone. You have that little bit of a line right there, but since that's the inside of the hat, here's the outside of the hat. And there you have it. There is your adorable, uh-oh, it did come out the other side. No biggie. You just put it through the same hole. Make sure the layers are separated. Push it down. Oh, it fell off again. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. Now, like I said, they did come with a crochet hook. This is what the crochet hook looks like. So instead of using the needle, I'm going to use the crochet hook. I'm going to go in between the layers up to where it's sticking out. Wrap it around, pull it down. Might need to do that again. This tails just don't want to go in there. There we go. And you can pull and stretch to get those tails to stay in there. You can even trim them off. Like if it's too long and it's being a nuisance like this one is, it's already hidden in there. Just trim it off. Make sure it's not coming out the other side. All right, now I think we finally got those tails. So here you have it. Here is your hat with your adorable little pom-pom. Again, it usually takes about 30 minutes for the hat to be made. The pom-pom is something extra. You can either make your own, and I know one of the machines does come with a pom-pom maker. So you can either make your own pom-pom or buy the little fuzzy fox fur pom-poms offline. But there you have it. You have an adorable little beanie. It can be a slouchy beanie. It's for a child. So there you have it, folks. That is how you make a hat on the Sentro knitting machine. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave those down in the comment section below. I look forward to answering any and all questions I possibly can. Again, I'm still new to the machine, so I don't know how to do everything. I can make maybe 3 or 4 things on the machine, which of course I will do tutorials on. So that is it, folks. What do you guys think? Oh, that pesky tail. And again, it's already down in there, so we're just going to cut these. Boom. Gone. 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 Now that we got rid of the tail, I guess apparently putting the tail away is the hardest part. But as you can see, it's nice and shimmery. And I think that nice pink pom-pom gives it a bit of a kick. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel and like to see more random videos just like this one, please feel free to hit that subscribe button and the bell to be notified anytime I randomly decide to put up a video. Thank you again for watching, and I'm going to now have to bid you adieu. But not before I remind you, like I always try to be kind, be courteous, be cool. Bye, guys.